Reloaded. I apologize for us starting a little bit late. As always, we just got to get stuff set up. Not a huge deal. As always, if you're joining and you're new, generally we give it a couple of seconds to let people come in. And this entire show is a conversation. It's a back and forth. We're going to be going over the Star Trek Discovery, Despite Yourself, the post show. This will actually have spoilers, so if you don't want spoilers, then go watch the show and definitely come back. But while we're waiting for people to come in, I just want to remind you guys to check me out at twitter.com/lorereloaded, facebook.com/lorereloaded. As always, you guys hanging out and just wanting to have a conversation is awesome. With me today, I got the one, the only, the rising star of YouTube, if you will, Anti-Tracker. How you doing, sir?
Well, it wasn't The Last Jedi.
That's true. That's true. One thing we can say, it's not The Last Jedi. We got Mason Herman saying hi. We got the Right Gamers. What's going on? Nexus, good evening. Right Gamers, you got to get on this podcast with me sometime, sir, or a show with me. We got Church Nexus 26. Hi. Teflon, hey, yo. Hey, if you guys haven't checked him out, too, definitely go check out the Anti-Tracker. He is growing just exponentially. It's pretty cool. He does a lot of things with Star Wars, so if you enjoy Star Wars, and he just tries to break things down, kind of like this channel, but different, so you should definitely check it out. Today, we are going to be talking about Despite Yourself. I already said that. And while we're talking, we're going to be looking at the comments. You guys let me know what you thought when you watched it. I need to say hi to 14K Leon, because I'm apparently on TV, which is where I deserve to be. But overall, what were your thoughts on Despite Yourself, Anti-Tracker? Just don't, not specifics, just the show itself.
Overall, I would say that the show, fortunately, is still on an upward path from its rocky beginnings. So it's not sucking like it did in the first few episodes. I would. There was a lot of setup, not a lot of payoff in this, except for a couple of fan theories that we've pretty much been, well, you haven't been, but most of us have been just assuming is true or confirmed, which we'll get into, I'm sure, when we get into the breakdown. So there was no real surprises here, with the exception of the exit of one character. I guess that was a little bit of a surprise. But overall, I think it was a good episode for them.
Yeah, and I agree. I think it's going upward. I felt more positive about this one, and again, I think it did a lot better because it was ensemble, not as focused on one character. You know how, if you guys have watched this series, you know that we have Michael Sue, which is basically our Mary Sue. The times when Michael does something that we would consider "quote unquote" Mary Sue-ish. And I only wrote down like two things, and one of them was from a previous episode. We can't do this without you, and then one we'll get towards the end. But beyond that, I didn't feel like she was a Mary Sue in this one. Would you agree with me on that?
Somewhat, yes. However, I do think it's funny that they did kind of go out of their way to establish that the other Michael, who we have not met yet, but I'm sure we will sooner or later, is a Mary Sue in this universe.
Because she's the captain of the Shinzu, and she's awesome, and she went after.
I mean, so she walks into the bridge, everybody applauds. It's like.
Well, I liked what they did with Lorca. They did Lorca appropriately. We're going to get into it. So let's just start off. So they're in this area. They don't know where they're at. This part I think everyone saw coming. I wasn't even surprised by it, but a Vulcan ship comes on them. The Vulcan ship, when I looked at it, it looked like an actual Vulcan ship. It seems like maybe they're actually starting to make these ships look like it.
I actually said that about the Vulcan ships when they've shown them before. The Vulcan ships have been the one thing that has looked relatively consistent with established canon. When you look at, I can't remember the name of the episode now, but the one where they showed Sarek taking off on a Vulcan ship, that ship looked like it could have been right out of Enterprise. And, of course, we never saw a Vulcan ship on the original series, so it would be a safe bet to go with the Enterprise-era designs.
Right.
And I think they did a good job with it. Overall, the series, other than the Vulcan philosophy being completely screwed, the ship design has actually been pretty good.
Right. And let's see, who said it? It was somewhere on. Someone said they'd like to see an entire series based on Mirror Universe. I think that's what the rest of the season's going to be about, honestly. I mean, I'd be surprised if they get home next episode or the episode after. I think they're going to run it all the way to the end. And I completely agree with everything you said. I really enjoyed how they treated the rebellion or the alliance, which it'd be very interesting to me, and I know you said they weren't in the original series, but it'd be very interesting to me if they brought up the Klingon-Cardassian alliance, because I'm actually doing Mirror Universe the next week. It's kind of a themed week, and I've been researching the Klingon-Cardassian alliance, but that wouldn't have come on. That may have existed. It'd be interesting if they brought that up.
Well, in the original series, because of course the Mirror Universe only appeared in one episode of the original series, and it's kind of funny because it's still the single best appearance of the Mirror Universe. I mean, if you watch every episode of every series that involved the Mirror Universe, I would say the original series episode Mirror Mirror was probably the best. In a distant second would be the Enterprise two-parter in the Mirror Darkly. I think was really well done. I think the Deep Space Nine one, honestly, was crap.
Sure.
And that's because they basically dismantled and neutered the Terran Empire in the DS9 episodes.
Right.
And the Terran Empire is what made the Mirror Universe so interesting, was to see these brutal, sadistic versions of the characters you know and love.
Right. I agree.
Or we're going to probably get into in Discovery is the nice versions of the characters that we now hate.
I would agree. I think DS9 did some things I wouldn't have agreed with. But just going back to this, so they're starting out and they're looking at all the wreckage. They have what was the name of the ship? I thought I'd written it down, but
I don't remember. Someone to see.
Yeah. So they have another Terran Empire ship come. Well, first a Vulcan ship comes upon them. They try to hail them. The ship, instead of running from a ship that is obviously more, that outclasses it, the Vulcan ship tries to fight the Discovery, and of course the Discovery is saved by another Terran Empire ship. And then for some reason, I guess maybe they chase it or they go after other rebels, but they leave the ship, they leave the Discovery alone. And so you have the crew trying to figure out what's going on and trying to scan and see where they are, because that ship is supposed to be in dry dock, being updated. It's really kind of an interesting dichotomy they do. One thing that I didn't bring up that I felt was a fake out, honestly. So you have... I think Ash is Voq. I don't think there's any way around that, right? It may
Well, that's one of the things I was saying. You were denying it before when everybody else was saying Ash is Voq. It's pretty freaking obvious.
Well, they could still technically do something around it.
He's a Klingon. There's no way around that.
Yeah, but they could do something around it that it's not Voq or something. They could do something stupid with it in that.
But when he was speaking in Voq's voice when he was speaking in Klingonese.
Okay.
And that's something I noticed, is that he sounded like Voq.
Sure. But, I mean, again, this is Discovery, right? So they could technically try to work around that, right? But anyway, so you have him have this standoff with the female Klingon, and she gives whatever their safe word and or safe phrase, and it all starts coming back to him, except it doesn't come back right. So he has the memories, but he doesn't, and he wants to be with her, but he doesn't, and he's really confused. He goes from wanting to have sex with her to wanting to kill her, and then we got more gore porn, which is just useless. I wish they'd stop doing that. Is there anything specific to that weird scene that you'd like to add? The going back and forth, the porn, not porn, love you, hate you.
I think it was kind of silly to, I mean, here's the thing, is that they're kind of trying to play coy here, like, ooh, it's a big mystery. But pretty much everybody that I know of that's been watching this show has been saying that this guy is Voq. I mean, there's no secret here. And so for them to be playing coy with it and trying to do a tease like, oh, what's going on with him? We know. We all know he is Voq, surgically altered to look human. And, you know, and the doctor kind of confirmed it.
I'm telling you, man, I would not be surprised, again, Discovery, I would not be surprised if it's not Voq, but someone else. Just because it's so obviously Voq. It's just I would not be surprised if they did
But you
that.
see, that would require clever writing, which the show has yet to demonstrate.
I
Let's be real here. The show's improved, but this show is not known for great writing, even
so
at the best.
here's my thing, and then he walks on the bridge because there's a yellow alert, and you have Saru and his ganglia that all of a sudden now it's like, oh, the Ash realizes there's something wrong with him, so now his ganglia realizes there's something wrong with him. If that was meant for Ash, it should have hit every time Ash was there. I think maybe it was
because of the Vulcan.
Yeah, or the Cooper. It could be. And you and me were talking about that. I think it's more likely that it was the Vulcans or the Cooper, because it makes no sense for it to be popping with Ash now. For his senses, whatever those are, nothing's changed, And I also think that the crew, when it comes to dealing with Ash, even past with the Doctor, there's obviously things wrong with this guy. I don't know why they're not picking up on these quite obvious issues, or at least acting upon them, Especially Lorca. You kind of get why Michael is trying to, I guess, protect him, but Lorca should be seeing some warning signs here, right? I just think it was a little too obvious for Lorca to continue. I mean, would you be with me on the same page there, or not really?
Well, you have the trouble is that we have the advantage of knowing about, pretty much being able to assume a lot of stuff just based on prior lore. We know they're in the mirror universe. We know that Ash is more than likely Vogue. But as far as they're concerned, Ash is someone suffering from extreme post-traumatic stress, which is something that Lorca is familiar with.
Would you want someone suffering from post-traumatic stress syndrome in this as the security officer in this situation?
Well, obviously not, but Lorca is also suffering from post-traumatic stress.
So he's not seeing the signs?
And I think he's compromised.
Okay.
So now Lorca still shows better judgment than most people on this show.
Right. But
I do think that his trust of Ash is in part because they suffered together in prison.
Right. So, Lorca, do you think Lorca knew that this was going to tear up Stamets, that he wouldn't be able to use it again? Do you think he did that on purpose to keep them there?
No, I don't. I don't think that. Again, I think that would require too much clever writing. I think that Lorca is... I do think that he may have wanted them to go to the other universe, but I don't think that he was intentionally trying to trap them there, because he genuinely wants to save Starfleet. And in order to save Starfleet, they have to get the information on their Klingon algorithm back to the Federation, which now they can't do until they get out of the mirror universe.
Then why risk going there in the first place? That doesn't make sense to me. See, I was thinking the same thing you did. I do think he cares about the Prime Universe. I sincerely do. I think he cares about everything that they're talking about, but everything he does is counter to that. It seems like, I don't know. I mean, I guess you could say it's the PTSD that's causing him to malfunction. But, so, they figure out that they're in the mirror universe. You have Stamets, who is completely... insane at this point, I guess, would be a way of saying it.
Who?
Stamets.
Yeah, well, Stamets, it's interesting. We don't know exactly what's going on with him. It seems like... I don't think he's insane. I think that he is suffering from some form of temporal shifting. Like, he's seeing the past, present, future all kind of melded together. He's seeing things that other people can't see, and it's too much for his brain to handle. And so he's basically catatonic most of the time.
Right.
So I don't think like he's just like raving mad or anything like that.
Sure.
I think that he just needs to get time to process all the necessary information.
Right. And they really, in the, I don't know, did you see the trailer? Probably not.
The trailer?
For this episode, for Despite Yourself.
No.
So it's hilarious because they made a big deal of him throwing the doctor to the floor, and it's like nothing. It's just like 30 seconds, and everybody ignores it after that. I thought it was funny how they built that up, and it really wasn't a big thing. You know what I did enjoy, and I really liked this Doctor until he was a complete idiot, which we'll get to. It ruined his character. He got what he deserved. We'll talk about that when it gets there. But at the point, you have both Tilly and you have the Doctor, and I think he's acting pretty professional even with what's going on. And Tilly is apologizing. She said, I should have told you. I should have been up front. And he said, you were under orders. You were doing your duty. And then Lorca walks in, and it's obvious. He says, speak of the devil. It's obvious he blames Lorca for everything that's happening. And then the interaction between him and Lorca, I thought was really interesting, and I liked it. I thought the fact that there was an argument, and both sides somewhat seemed to have valid points, in my opinion. I think Lorca more had a military... he was right from a military standpoint and from an emotional standpoint, but I think the Doctor was right from a moralistic standpoint. It seemed like it wasn't just a one-sided someone's right, someone's wrong. What were your thoughts on their argument?
Well, I don't know, because here's the thing, is that the Doctor was obviously emotionally involved, which would be a danger to the whole situation. And I think Lorca at least recognizes that he was emotionally involved. So I think that I would have to side with Lorca overall in the argument, and look at what ended up happening to the Doctor.
Right.
And so I think a lot of that is because he was distracted by what was going on with the man he loved.
Well, I don't disagree that Lorca took him off and that he should have been taken off of the project. I completely agree with that, because Lorca was basically, you're too emotionally involved. We got to get somebody who is not emotionally involved. We're both on the same page there. But him coming back and saying, you did this to him, some of this was unnecessary, you just care about winning the war and not the person, has some validity. I'm not saying I necessarily maybe disagree with his point. I just think it has some validity. You know what I'm saying? He has it at a personal level, which...
But that's also... that is his primary mission.
Right.
He does need to win the war, and winning the war is more important than anyone on that ship.
I agree.
So
I'm not saying I necessarily agree with his argument, but it doesn't mean it doesn't have some validity at a personal level. Probably with those who wouldn't go as far as you or I would to win a war, but I mean, or would agree with what total war is. But yeah, so I thought the scene was at least well put together when they were going back at it. Let's see, I was trying to see what the next piece is. So now you have Ash, who is all kinds of messed up, and they're going into the field to try to figure if they can find some kind of database of what's going on. I really liked... Again, this does really well in building mirror universe mythos. I'm surprised I'm saying Discovery is doing something well when it comes to lore, but I think it really does do a great job in making it seem more mysterious and also building it out. Like when they found the Andorian and the Vulcan bodies together on a Klingon ship, which made no sense to the crew. And it felt believable, too. What did you think about that? Did it feel believable that they're surprised?
Yeah, that part I didn't... Well, but here's the... I don't know. I'm a little mixed on it, because on the one hand... now, this takes place approximately 10 years prior to the original series, if I remember correctly.
Okay.
And in the original series episode Mirror Mirror, Vulcans are not only a part of the Empire, they are a feared and respected part of the Empire.
Okay.
And so there's this whole thing where Spock in Mirror Mirror is talking to Sulu about how, because Sulu is, of course, conniving to get the captaincy.
Right.
And Spock and he says, you need to be aware that my operatives will avenge my death, and some of them are Vulcans. And that made Sulu stop and think.
Right.
So the Vulcans in the original series episode are respected in the Empire, and in this, the Vulcans seem to be rebels.
Right.
Now, we don't know if all the Vulcans are rebels, or if this is just a rebel faction, and maybe the Vulcan High Command is actually a part of the Empire. But then they go out of their way to say that the Empire's entire philosophy is based on xenophobia.
Right. Yeah, that was going to be the point that I brought up, that they specifically say they hate everything different, everything not them. I honestly expected when they were having that speech.
They voted for Trump.
No, not they voted for Trump, but something that was akin to Make America Great Again. Not Make America Great Again, specifically.
Make the empire great again.
Yeah, not that specifically, but something that would have reminded you of it, you know?
Right.
I specifically, I didn't specifically, I really thought they were going to do that. So they go into the field, and they go into the field itself. Of course, you have Ash, who's just all kinds of broken up. You see Michael is also distracted or compromised, would be another word.
Well, because of her relationship. Yeah, everybody's screwing each other on Discovery, apparently.
Yeah, exactly. And so they get the crystal or whatever it is and ultimately bring it back. And there was an interesting piece that you even brought up where they take it out and they're looking at it. Again, she's pointing out that this technology is from Vulcan, but it's on a Klingon ship. And she says it's time to be a xenoanthropologist, because that's what it's... And
which really what they needed was a computer engineer.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't even know that that would be anthropology, even if she was going through it, would it? I don't know.
What they needed was someone who could decrypt computer information.
Right.
A xenoanthropologist, anthropology, that whole line just threw me off. I was like,
yeah, it was just kind of weird for them to go through.
Because anthropology is the study of various aspects of humans in past and present societies. Okay, now, granted, you could say, well, she was looking for information on what was going on, but that doesn't require an anthropologist. That requires someone that can decode the information and read what's going on.
Right.
You know, it wasn't like there was like, oh, we need to learn about society and all that. No, they know the basics. They understand that the ships, the people, all the basic stuff is there, but everything seems to be reversed. But they wanted to get, like getting the crew manifest, figuring out how to make themselves look like Terrans, that whole thing, that makes sense. But to throw that line in there, like, by the way, don't forget, I'm an expert at everything.
Yeah, you're right. That's a Mary Sue point. My other thing is wow, the Alliance, the Rebels, have a lot of information on the Terran Empire. I mean, we don't know what's going on. It seems like the Terran Empire is
crew manifest of every ship now.
Yeah, and they're able to get classified information and things. So,
except for the information on the Defiant.
Right.
Which, by the way, I will give them kudos for respecting a canon to a certain extent, in that they reference directly to Inamir Darkly and the Tholian Web with that. Although, then they changed the design of the Defiant.
Yeah, you said that. I didn't get a good look at it. So did they change the design of the Defiant?
Okay, find on your... I'm sure you have a compilation of still images there.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, look for when they are looking at the screen and you see a wireframe picture of the Defiant. And they even mention that it is a Constitution-class ship.
Right. I'll be looking for that as we're going through in my still images, as we're talking about. To kind of reference what I can comment now. Guys, just wrapped up, watched, loved it, and ready for your best attempts to try to dissuade me. I love how we're trying to say this is horrific. We're just giving our opinions. We're two guys who love Star Trek.
And this was not... For this show, this was a better than average episode.
I agree. I think it's like a 7 out of 10, 1 being the worst they've ever done, 10 being the best. I'd give it a 7 out of 10 myself.
This was not a particularly bad episode. There were a few things that bothered me, like why is it that they feel the need to change everything?
Weren't you? You mean on the ship?
Well, not that. But
okay, because you got
things like the design of the Defiant, right? There was no need to change the design of a Constitution-class ship.
It
And I
could be
don't understand why
modified.
they...
I mean, maybe they modified it after they got it. Maybe it was additions to it, you know?
No, because they even said straight up that's a Constitution class.
Sure.
They didn't say, oh, well, it looks like it's been modified. No, they said straight up that that's a Constitution class ship. And, you know, when they were pulling, and remember, they didn't have the details on the Defiant from the mirror universe data. What they did was they said, oh, it looks like that another starship came through. There's records of something about the Defiant, and then they punched up the Defiant. That was their record of the Defiant.
That it went missing, right?
Right.
Does that time era line up?
No,
too?
well, no, it doesn't, because the Defiant disappeared during the original series, which is 10 years in their future. But I don't think they referred to, because remember, Lorca didn't know how it got there.
Right.
And so it hasn't gone missing yet from their perspective.
But Michael said, no, I think Michael did say that it went missing in their timeline and they never knew what happened to it.
I don't know. I'd have to review that.
Because Michael said, I think she did. Whoa. But yeah, like you said, I'll have to review it as well. So, you know, there are points when you have Ash, whoever, having these interactions with the female Klingon. I don't think they add a lot besides just to have a reason to have gore porn, so there's not more I'm going to add on that front. So they're trying to figure out what's going on. Then Ash has himself voluntarily looked at, right? And there are starting to have red flags pop up. And a part of it comes here, which just makes me so utterly stupid. I'm sorry, guys, if I'm going out of order here, but we're really just going over it. With the doctor, so he begins doing different scans. Like you say, the more I think about it, the more he could be distracted, because while he's running scans on him, he's over there talking to Stamets, right? Who gives him, there's enemies here, or whatever. You need to be careful. Kind of makes you think maybe it's Lorca that's going on. And then ultimately, he brings him back and he starts having this conversation. So this is the most idiotic, cliche, stupid thing. I'm glad it happened to him. He got what he deserved seen on the face of the planet. All right, so you redo over the entire scans and you see, oh, they've modified this person. They've crushed his bones. They've made him shorter. They've made him look human, which, if I remember the episode with Tribbles, the heart rate and everything is completely different. So apparently somehow they genetically modified that.
Well, and remember this. Well, that particular episode, they simply said he was surgically altered to appear human, but he wouldn't have passed a medical scan, obviously, because McCoy picked it up right away.
Right. But then he does a full medical scan on him, and he's like, "You're not who you think. You're not who you think you are." And he says this without any security in the room. Let's before, I know you're going to comment, but let's just go for a couple of things. First off, Stamets has already physically assaulted someone, so we know that it's possible that he might try to harm himself or others. Secondly, you've just discovered a spy on the ship, and you're going to confront him by yourself. Well, Stamets is there, but he can't do much. By yourself. Got what you deserved. Absolutely got what you deserved. Horrific. Doctor is an idiot. Your thoughts?
Well, you know, the stupid thing to me about that whole thing is that 5 minutes before that incident happened, we got to see that when Stamets went berserk, he immediately put up a force field.
Right.
Why didn't he put a force field around him? Why didn't he just do the same thing? Quarantine him right away.
Yeah, I didn't think about it. As soon as he looked like he was getting agitated, just reach over and hit a couple of buttons. That's a good point.
Yeah, because he already did it once, and for the same reason. Stamets was dangerous, and so
right.
And Stamets was someone he actually cares about.
Right.
And so so it made no sense to me that he didn't just do it again.
Right.
And in fact, he should have done it before he started revealing all the information.
No Stripe 361. Real heroes take on spies single-handedly. Yeah.
And yes, Tim, the Doctor is dead.
Yeah, this is spoilers. I mean, we've been saying This is spoilers. So this may have happened before, but how did you like Tilly's performance overall? I think Tilly is coming along. I like her character. We didn't have too much of her as the comedy relief as we had. So I'm still enjoying Tilly. I still like Tilly's interactions, especially now that she's thrust into a position she doesn't want to be.
Well, I think that Tilly, I think she did okay. I did not hate her in this episode. And it's funny because remember we went on kind of a tirade, or at least I did, about the same actress, in fact, from a few episodes back when she randomly dropped the F-bomb, which made no sense whatsoever in the context of that episode.
Right.
In this one, she uses another 4-letter word, but in the context of the episode, it made perfect sense, and I didn't object to that. Now, even though I still think Star Trek should be a more family-friendly show than what they're making here, I honestly didn't have a problem with the fact that she swore, because she was trying to get into the spirit of where they were.
Right. I liked her interaction with Burnham as well, with Burnham trying to, as her mentor. I thought that was done really well in this instance when, she's sitting there and she's talking about how nervous she is and that she doesn't know if she can do it. She's not confident yet. And Burnham says, you just need to let our faith fortify you for, who you are, who you have to pretend to be, like a real captain would.
Right.
I really liked that. I thought that she was a good mentor in that instance. I think that this was a lot better than it's been done historically. And I don't know if you have anything to add to that, but that was just my thoughts when it came to that. I liked her interactions on the when she's talking to ships too. It's like, what the heck, what the hell? She gets confused. And then she sends it to Lorca, who suddenly has a Scottish accent.
Which I thought was so here's a problem I have with the what the heck, what the hell moment. It was cute, it was funny, and it was well acted. Overall, I have no problem with it, except that this is the same character who casually used the F word a few episodes ago, and now she's stumbling over saying hell over heck.
Well, she's nervous though. I mean, she's nervous. Yeah, she doesn't. I don't.
Yeah, when you're nervous, when you're nervous, you would tend to cuss more, not less.
Apparently, my mom has a Scottish accent, so that's kind of interesting, according to John Wickham.
Okay. But yeah, and I thought Lorca's Scottish accent was kind of funny. It was kind of because remember, she said, "Here's my chief engineer," and then he had a Scottish accent. So I thought that was a little homage to Scotty. And
yeah, obviously.
I thought that was a fun little moment. Right. I didn't have a problem with it. But yeah, the what the heck thing just kind of threw me off a little bit, just because even though I thought it was a funny moment, it didn't seem to fit her character. Like, and maybe she should have said what the F, that would,
Well, the only other thing is, it's a small nitpick, but he said something's wrong with our visual sensors, which are inside, which is kind of makes sense. But then he's like, and our port nacelle isn't working. Couldn't they scan that? Couldn't they just...
We don't know how far away they were, though, because...
that's true.
Excuse me. Obviously, they were a ways away because of the fact that they didn't just show up immediately.
Right.
So, because if they were really close enough to scan them, then the other ship we would have seen them a lot earlier.
Right. I guess that makes sense. So again, they're getting ready. They found out that Lorca is a hero, and I thought that was well done too, because Lorca would be a hero in this, where he tries to kill the Emperor. I think we're going to find out that he was helping the Alliance, because that would make sense almost to me.
Right.
his alter ego just trying to destroy or kill the Emperor and help the Alliance and bring peace, because that doesn't seem like what this Laura would do, or Lorca would do. I mean, did you have any issues with any of the alter egos of them that we find out?
Well, like I think it's funny that Michael is Mary Sue in both universes. I think in the other universe he should have been a complete failure at everything. But the no, and I think that looking at the trailer for next week's episode, because they show kind of funny Sarek with a goatee doing a mind meld on her, and so it's probable that they are going to seek the help of the Alliance,
Right.
and Sarek is a major part of the Alliance. However, if Sarek, and this throws in some canon problems, is that if Sarek is a major problem or a major part of the Alliance, it would be highly unlikely that Spock would be the first officer on the flagship.
Well, here's an idea. What if, because of their actions, the Vulcans become a part of the Terran Alliance, that they don't change the Terran Alliance, but it becomes just a little bit more, a little bit less xenophobic? So they take in the Vulcans, or the Vulcans betray the Alliance, and that's how you get to Spock. They try to tie it in that way.
Possibly, but I don't know. We'll have to see how it plays out. But right now, it just seems like while they've done some good things here, they've also done some things that I think they're writing themselves into a corner with. Because, like I said, the way they took the whole xenophobe and they literally said xenophobic and racist. However, nobody seemed to have a problem with people of color. So how is it racist?
Right.
Because
well, I mean, I think
Michael
they
is
get
a
what you mean, right?
Well, no, but they distinguish between the two, right? Because if you're xenophobic, then that means that non-humans would be unwelcome, right? And which, fine, I can buy that from what we, from the Terran Empire. Otherwise, because they're called the Terran Empire. So fine. So they don't trust anybody who's not human. They're kind of like the Empire from Star Wars.
Right.
However, for them to then also throw in racist, well, a racist would not be someone who is against a Klingon. A racist would be a person who didn't appreciate that Michael Burnham was a captain because she's black.
Well, Anthony Dukes says Vulcan is a race. So it would be your... I mean, it's more a species. It wouldn't be...
Yeah, it is.
I guess you can use it as a race of people. Maybe that's what she meant.
There's actually... E.C. Henry did a video on whether or not different groups in Star Trek are the same or different species. Because technically speaking, a species, from a scientific perspective, is a group of organisms that can reproduce.
Right.
And so since humans and Vulcans can, in fact, reproduce together, doesn't that make them the same species?
Right.
But, that's a whole other question.
For another time. So there was an issue I had. And, yeah, by the way, because I know it's going to come up, this is just us talking. Yeah, it's a nitpick. We're just having a conversation about it, which is what we do. And you're on a lore channel. We're going to break down minutia. I had an issue with this. You and my wife did not. And it's not a huge thing. I'm not, like, crazy upset. But they're like, all right, so when in Rome, be Roman. I somewhat understand that. They changed the name to the ISS Discovery. I can get behind that. They never even think about what the ISS Discovery is doing in the Prime universe, but whatever. So they changed the name to the ISS
Which could, by the
Discovery.
way, be an interesting couple of episodes in and of itself.
When they get back? Yeah.
Well, no, I mean to actually go and follow the ISS Discovery in the Prime universe, trying to figure out what the heck is going on.
How would they do that without being confusing? They'd have to be very careful how they did that. Without it getting confusing for the audience, because they're doing to the lowest denominator. But I agree. I think I'm not disagreeing with you. I just think that they'd have to be very careful in how they did the episode. That'd be interesting to see, though. So I'm on board with changing the name on the ship in case someone gets close enough. I'm on board with masking your quantum signature, even though apparently that can't be done.
I had a problem with that.
Well, no, that's what I'm saying. It's not a huge issue for me, but it's like, you can't change your quantum signature, and then somehow they mask it, so I guess you can. Changing the bridge makes a lot of sense because you're going to be in visual, but they change absolutely everything about the ship, including every console. Every console. Now, I understand there might be a time when you're going to have people come over, but you can still prepare for that to a degree, and I don't think that you have to go to the nth thing. I'm surprised you didn't see people picking up tables and carrying them out and bringing tables with the Terran Empire emblem on them. And then putting little breath mints that had the Terran Empire insignia on it.
You never know. In fact, maybe Lorca changed his fortune cookies so that they're now Terran Empire cookies.
They have little Terran Empire signals on them.
Yeah. So I didn't, I didn't really have a problem with that because, I think they were trying to, look the part and also get everybody used to behaving like Terrans.
Yes.
Because you know how it is. Like if you dress up in an elaborate costume for Halloween or a con or something like that, or even for people that have done like any kind of stage acting or anything, when you put the costume on, when you're in the setting, it's much, much easier to become that character. And they're trying to build a fake character out of their entire crew.
Right.
And so I think that does make sense to a certain extent. And it's, of course, the hardest on Tilly because she is woefully inexperienced, but now she's got to be the captain.
I think it makes sense that that's her. I think they did a really good job of the mirror universe her.
Right. Right, because she was ambitious in our universe, but she wants to do everything the right way. In this universe, she's just as ambitious, and except that, she's just like, she's going for the gusto. She's going to start assassinating people left and right to get her captaincy. Right.
She doesn't care who she has to go through or what she has to do. I think it'll be interesting if we come upon her. We probably will. I don't see why they wouldn't do that. So let me, and you may have pointed this out, but point it out again. What issues did you have with the quantum signature?
As soon as they started talking about the quantum signature thing in the wreckage and all that, all of a sudden the writing just felt like, oh, so they hired the Voyager staff writers for this episode. Because never in the original Trek did anybody ever talk about quantum signatures.
I don't remember it in DS9. I don't remember in DS9.
No, I think in DS9 they mentioned quantum mechanics a couple of times. But the original Trek was not about technobabble. It never was.
Right.
And it doesn't seem feasible that a 23rd century ship would be able to just suddenly change its own quantum signature to, and they did it like so casually. It's like, uh-oh, they're coming. Hold on. Okay, now we look like them. What?
Now act horrific.
Yeah.
What do you, let me ask you this. What do you think about, and this is an important question coming from Anthony Dukes, does the Mirror Universe have rave parties on the ship and ISS disco shirts?
No, in the Mirror Universe, they have death metal jams and mosh pits.
And no shirts.
Yeah, and of course, weekly orgies. And for those people... And, of course, for the people that are really into it, they have orgies in the agony booths.
That's... what the hell is wrong with us, man?
You know that's coming. If they keep going at this rate with this show, we're going to have somebody going, the agony booth can actually be kind of fun.
What is it? What, Rule 64 or whatever the hell it is? There's got to be something out there, fanfic, about how people are doing it in the agony booth. That's horrible, man. The conversations.
You heard it here first, folks.
Yeah, we're calling it. We're calling it the agony booth.
The S&M crowd gets in the agony booth, and that's a party to them.
I mean, why not? They're doing everything else, right? So as we discussed beforehand, the data is incomplete, even though they have a drastic amount of information. Again, the Alliance is very well prepared to take on the Terran Empire, even though they're apparently losing. They have all the informations, except for the key piece of information that they got to get off of her former ship.
Right.
And you said, did they need to go to the? They didn't need to go to the ISS Defiant. They just needed to get to her ship to get the information. Oh, well, they renamed it to the ISS Defiant, I believe. But anyway,
no,
whatever.
They never renamed it in the Enterprise thing. So
it sounded like they did in this episode, though. I mean, maybe they didn't.
No, they just referred to it as the Defiant. By the way, did you find that still image yet?
No,
because I do want to talk about that design.
I'll keep looking for it. I was trying to sit here and talk and multitask. If you want to buy some time, because since
what you can do is if you on your screen there. If you make it so that they can't see the still images, it'll make it so that you can go through them faster.
Right.
And it's towards the beginning of the episode when they first realize where they are.
Is it towards the beginning? Because I thought it was towards the end. Okay, I'll take.
No, I think it's like within the first 15 minutes.
Okay, well, I'll be taking a look for that. Since you're now like the ultra person because Boofire. You can.
Boofire's awesome, man.
I think Boofire is awesome too, and I think now that you're going to be even bigger than me, you need to buy some time. Talk about something else about it that you would make people mad that they don't like.
But what?
I don't know. Talk about something else. Come on, entertain the people. Make a decision.
The people. No, I and by the way, I like it's Rule 34. By the way, if that someone posted a little while ago. That if you can think of it, there's porn of it or something. So yeah, there probably is. There's probably I don't know if there's a porn version of Star Trek Discovery yet, but there will be. But yeah, I like overall the idea of doing the Terran Empire storyline. I'm curious to see what they do. And I want to see the USS Defiant. Particularly, I want to see the interiors of the Defiant. But the problem is, like on the Enterprise series, which, while granted, the Enterprise series was, about a decade ago, but it was only a decade ago. It wasn't like we're not talking about a show made in the 60s now. And when they went to the Defiant, they recreated all the sets and everything to look identical to the original series. And it worked. And people that say that the old campy designs can't work are full of crap. And that's one of the problems I have with a lot of the arguments about why they have to change everything. I understand, well, on the Discovery, since the Discovery is an advanced prototype ship and okay, that's going to be all different. But there's no reason that the Shinzo couldn't have looked more like classic Star Trek set pieces, and especially since the entire series doesn't take place on the Shinzo. So I do kind of have a problem with that. I think that they're afraid of looking cheesy, and in doing so, in trying to avoid the cheese so desperately, it kind of robs some of the nostalgia effect of the show. Like, especially like the whole mirror universe thing. If they're going to actually, because in the trailer it looks like, if they're going to actually have the male Vulcans be, have goatees, they're going to go for that level of cheese, but they're not going to, they're not going to let the ship look the way it originally looked. Now, I see you found the image.
By the way, when you said 15 minutes in, you really meant 35 minutes in.
Really? Was it that far?
It was.
Actually, they did go to it twice.
Okay.
Now you can see on that image, does it not say USS Defiant?
Okay. They could be
looking.
I'm
just saying, right by his head. It's hard for me to see, but on your screen, it should be larger.
It is. It says USS Defiant. This could be their own records, though, right? Or maybe not.
That's what I'm saying. This is their shipboard records of the Defiant as it currently stands in Starfleet, because it hasn't gone missing yet.
Sure.
And now, overall, the design, I can take minor changes in the design, and I think like the minor changes to the saucer section and even the engineering section I can take, but the warp pylons bugged the crap out of me. That just jumped out at me as like, why did you do that?
What specifically are the differences in it for those who aren't like original series purists?
Well, number one, the warp pylons are simply a straight line from the secondary hull to the warp engine, to the warp nacelle. And so not only is there, for some reason, an angular bend about 2/3 of the way up on the pylon, but then you notice there's like a little pod there.
Right.
And so, and yeah, like No Stripe just said, why do the pylons have wings? That's what's bugging me. Is, you know, I get if you're going to do some minor aesthetic changes, I'm cool with that. But, you know, why did they have to change the shape of the warp pylon? That didn't make, that's completely unnecessary.
Well, and you might not be able to see it right now, but I'm going to put right next to it. And
what,
then,
a classic Connie or something?
Yeah, classic ship, so that people can see the differences between them.
Well, that's the one from the films.
Right. I'll try to get a different one, but you can still, it still gives you what you're saying. There's a straight line. Even in this one, there's a straight line between it. I'll try to get the actual one, though. But yeah.
And in fact, what that Connie that they have on Discovery looks like is that they took the movie era Constitution class, but then they tweaked the pylons, and they made the it looks like the refit Enterprise except with round warp drive, with round warp nacelles, which doesn't make a lot of sense and seems unnecessary, especially considering that this takes place prior to the original series. And while I understand some people, someone commented about the old gummy buttons, the brightly colored gummy buttons. And yeah, what's wrong with that? And in fact, this is a problem I have with not just Discovery. This is not a Discovery thing. This is a problem I have with a lot of sci-fi in general. And in fact, even back to some of, you know, the later Star Trek films like Star Trek VI and on. And Star Trek The Next Generation, I have a problem with this, is that there are no buttons. They use touch pads for everything. Now, here's an interesting little fact, is that if you look at a jet fighter from the 1960s and you look in the cockpit, you're going to see a lot of buttons and switches. If you look in a jet fighter manufactured last Tuesday, you're going to see a lot of buttons and switches. And the reason is that buttons and switches are more durable than touchscreens. If you break a touchscreen, that console is now useless. With buttons and switches, even if there's damage to the console itself, you can still hit the button.
Right.
You know, do they have to be big, glowy, gummy, candy-looking buttons? No, but they should be buttons. They should not be everything shouldn't look like a frickin' iPad.
But LCDs look better, man. They look more sleek, more futuristic. Da-da-da. I would not have an issue if they had dual, like you had the LCD right next to it, which made was easier. And then if that goes out, you have the manual that you can use.
But I would even go this far. Any of you right now, because I'm sure there's a lot of geeks that are probably watching right now. I consider myself a pretty hardcore nerd. Do any of you have a flat touch screen for typing in your comments right now? And I would dare say the answer is no. Even if you have you might have, like, I'll show right now. My keyboard is a pretty nice keyboard. All right. So it's got the nice glowing backlit buttons and everything. But it's a physical keyboard. It's not, I'm not going with some kind of weird LCD looking keyboard, even though that might look cool. It would be completely impractical. You need to, and in fact, that's part of the reason for buttons and the reason that keyboards are all laid out the same way. If you're on, say, a submarine or a destroyer or any kind of large naval vessel, and the electrical power goes down and you can't see, you need to be able to feel your controls. Guess what? You can't feel the controls if everything's a flat panel.
Chad R taking us to task. Oh God, fanboys are never satisfied. Dude, have you ever seen our channels?
First of all, there's a certain level of truth that fanboys would never say something is perfect because, there's always room for improvement. And I've said several times that this has been a better episode for them. This is not, I'm not saying this is a crap episode, but this aesthetic thing that they've done makes no sense. Right. It's not logical. And besides the fact that it kind of violates canon, it's also impractical.
Right. Yeah.
And because buttons, there's a reason that you have a physical keyboard in front of you right now if you're watching this on your computer.
Right. I agree. I don't think there's anything wrong with pointing out things that could be improved, even if you like or love what you're looking at. Something asked by 14K Liam, which is maybe a good point. What if the design of the class changed because of the war with the Klingons? Now, if that's true, it's possible, but then that would mean they're not looking at their database.
This is the prime timeline. So this show is supposed to be a direct prequel to the original series. This is not the JJ verse.
Yeah, but are we sure this is from the prime timeline and they didn't pull it off of the data crystal of Datanus?
No, because remember, they couldn't get any information on the Defiant from the data crystal of Datanus.
Okay.
That's the whole point of them going to the Shinzo, is that they had no data on the Defiant. They needed to get data on the Defiant so they could find out how it came through.
Right. Okay, I was just asking. I was trying to give that counterpoint. I'm not arguing with you.
No, yeah. From everything, and granted, maybe I'm only human. I could be wrong, but if I remember correctly, what you're looking at on that screen right there is their library computer's record of their USS Defiant.
Right. By the way, this keeps coming up. Guys, if you're listening to this and you would like me or Anti-Tracker or anybody else to do any kind of collaborations with anybody, definitely let us know, but being a content creator takes a lot of time, and generally it's hard to do collaborations. But don't only reach out to us, reach out to the person you're wanting us to do it with, maybe like in a Twitter or whatever. Just include both of us if that's what you want.
Somebody suggest a collaboration or something?
Yeah, a couple of times in the stream alone. People, again, they just want people to collaborate, which is cool. I'm open to collaborating with who they want me to collaborate with. Just reach out to them as well. So we need to continue moving forward because apparently we're making Amazed Sasuma sleep, which I don't think that's what Amazed Sasuma wants us to do.
Well, what Amazed Sasuma? Then this is your moment. What do you want from us right now? Tell us right now.
Well,
as long as it's legal.
Well, we got
no nudity. This is YouTube. Sorry.
Yeah. What do you think? This is the Discovery show. We can't give you nude.
We can get you Klingon boobs.
Yeah. So 20-second delay. Let's see. So I think it's so they move forward and they're going to send Ash. They're going to send Michael, of course, because why wouldn't they send Michael? And then they're going to send Lorca. And this is kind of where the show I thought got. I liked where it went with, and I liked where it didn't. Again, you have another just blaring red flag. Ash comes in, and he's like, well, where you been? We've been expecting this. He's like, I don't know. And Lorca's like, what? And he's like, it won't happen again. Okay, well, we're just going to go ahead and ignore that. And they beam over. I kind of like and buy... It's weird, because the way... Michael acts at first, I kind of get and kind of don't, because it seems like she's trying to portray a person who is conflicted, who doesn't want to have to do what she has to do to Lorca for it to be realistic, but it doesn't come off as that. I don't know, it's weird. I somewhat buy it and I somewhat don't. I just think the acting is not there for me. I mean, did you buy her pulling a gun, going with him? I don't know. It just felt weird. What are your thoughts on that interaction?
I mean, when they were on the transporter pads, when they first got to the
when they first got to the Shinzu, the ISS Shinzu.
No, I didn't have a problem. I think Michael did a decent job, especially if you stop to consider. Now, the one thing I thought was stupid was when she held the salute too long. That I thought was dumb.
Right.
Michael, and this is the inconsistency of Michael here, because they try to make it so that on the one hand she is no nonsense, non-emotional, logical, and on the other hand they make her overly emotional and prone to panic. And it's like, which is it?
Right.
And so I don't buy that with her experience, with the stuff that she has done, that we've seen her do, that she would not be able to hold her cool and realize that she doesn't need to hold her salute out there. And especially since everybody seems to worship her in the mirror universe, which is exactly what she's used to, so she should feel right at home.
Yeah. Question: Why? Why
To the
did?
point where now they applaud her as she comes onto
Well,
the bridge.
that's
That was
because
so.
that's because she killed a person, though. To be fair, we'll get to that. Q&A: Why did Lorca cause all of this? I think we discussed this at the beginning, and so if you're just coming in, I would agree with Michael when he said Lorca is suffering from PTSD. And I think that he's fighting himself because the female admiral survived, and so he knows his days in command are numbered. So he goes there to get away from that, but he also doesn't want his prime timeline to lose the war, and so now he's trying to get back. I think that he's conflicted, and I think that's done well, in my opinion. That'd be my opinion. Would you agree with that?
At this point, I am still of the opinion that their ending up in the mirror universe was an accident. I don't think that Lorca planned it. I know people, on various theory channels and stuff have shown close-ups of the console and how the coordinates he put in when said like unknown or something like that, or secret or whatever. And I just don't buy, considering the fact that his number one motivation, Lorca's absolute number one motivation throughout the series, is winning the war.
I agree.
And that's one thing that's been pretty consistent with his character. And they know to win the war, they have to get the algorithm they learned that will bust the Klingon cloak to Starfleet. And so if he was going to try and sneak them into another dimension for some fun exploration time, he would do it after they got the information to Starfleet.
Right. Well, I like how you say that, for some fun exploration time. Like, yeah, that makes sense.
Fun exploration in the agony booth, baby.
I really hope we get to see Mirror Universe Lorca. You know, here I had a thought. I don't know if this was going to happen.
Michael and Lorca are probably out there.
Right, but here's my question. What if this Lorca stays on this side and somehow gets a captainship or something, and then good Lorca goes back with her? You think they'd do that?
I could see them doing that, but I'm not convinced that what you call good Lorca is good.
I do. So you think he's evil? You think he's evil? Because the exact opposite of Lorca in the Prime timeline would be a Lorca who would want to have, who doesn't have PTSD, who wants the Federation to be, who wants what's best for the Federation, not just himself, who isn't as selfish as Lorca is.
But here's the thing: all we know about Mirror Lorca, as far as the official record, is that he tried to stage a coup against the Emperor.
Right.
And notice they're being very, very secretive about who the Emperor is, which is stupid. But
it's possible Hoshi's still. I know it's 100 years ago, but people live.
Yeah,
very long.
It could
it's
be,
possible
it could be a
Hoshi.
90-year-old Hoshi or something. But which they could do that. They could get. I can't remember the name of the actress, but the girl that played Hoshi. I mean, has she been doing anything lately? I'm sure they could get her to come on and put some old age makeup on her.
Right.
But but if Emperor Hoshi is out there or whatever, or they have some other character that we're going to know from prior Trek, like maybe it's Captain Pike,
Right.
But except that no, because we know in canon that Kirk assassinated Pike to take command of the Enterprise, so never mind. So I think Hoshi would probably, it could be Georgiou. That would actually be interesting if Georgiou was the Empress.
Or no. What if it's Burnham? What if it actually is Burnham? I could see them doing that. Does she dies, pretends there's some kind of crazy emperor, and she's the power behind the throne? Tell me, Discovery writers wouldn't do that.
Well, except the problem is that then they would if that were the case, if Michael Burnham was the Emperor, then they would, as soon as she got on board the Shinzo, they would refer to her as Emperor. They wouldn't refer to her as Captain.
No. But here's what I'm saying. They think she dies. She survives. She starts working in the background and becomes the Emperor, kills the actual Emperor.
So she's like the secret Emperor.
Yes. Super secret Emperor of specialness ×2.
Yeah. I doubt it. And by the way, I know Martin's just kidding around, but he was saying Kirk or Picard obviously couldn't be Picard because he hasn't been born yet, or Spock. But remember, Kirk and Spock still have an adventure in this timeline 10 years in the future.
Right, and he would be...
And in that, Spock is the first officer and Kirk is the captain of the ISS Enterprise. And that's actually an interesting idea. If Georgiou is like Hoshi's daughter,
right,
that would actually kind of be an interesting idea. But I would like to know, because I have a feeling we're going to see Georgiou again. And I was half expecting Georgiou to be the captain of the Shinzo when the instead of the random white guy that died in the first episode and is now random white guy that died in this episode.
I like that they brought it. I'll tell you, I'll say this. I like that part because in the first episode, he, for me, epitomized... Whoops, sorry, my still images were moving, which they don't because they're still images. I like that because in the first episode, he epitomized what Starfleet was supposed to be, and I thought it was I thought it was acted well, and I thought it was done very well. It actually stuck with me because he walks into, he walks into the brig he has shell shock or something happened to him, and
I could, by the way, I don't mean to cut you off, but I could actually see Emperor Mudd. That could actually work.
That'd be funny. But yeah, but no, they and he says, we're supposed to be explorers. Why is this happening? And now he's like this person who's willing to kill to become a captain.
Right, because he's the opposite.
Yeah, I like that tie-in. I liked it. What's going on, Sci-Fi Sith Dan? But yeah, Mudd's the Emperor. That would be awesome. I agree. Yeah. Though
that would be a fun reveal. That really would. That would be good.
It would only be fun if he was still somewhat like himself, though, for me. I don't know. Right. Go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt you. I apologize.
Well, maybe they'll actually make him more like Mudd from the original series.
That would be funny.
But no, I think that obviously there's going to be some kind of reveal as to who the Emperor is. Otherwise, they would have not referred to the Emperor several times and also say, "Oh, who's the Emperor? Oh, we don't know."
Well, and I love how
and it's like, why? You mean they have the entire crew manifest of every starship, but they don't have the name of the Emperor?
Right.
That'd be like somebody's, if somebody suddenly showed up in the United States from another parallel universe and everybody's just referring to the president,
right,
and nobody's going to say Trump, that it doesn't make sense.
Here's an interesting idea. It would make no sense, but would still be funny if it's actually the actual Fenton, the Mudd from the Prime universe. He somehow found a way to get there to escape his wife. And then took over. Yeah, and it's like he's like, and he even points it out during the reveal. He's like, "Oh, so you must be from the Prime universe too?" And they're like, "How do you know that?" He's like, "I'm there too. I unfortunately had to leave my wife, of whom I love," and whatever. Just goes into it. That would be great.
Stella has inspired me to explore other universes.
Oh man.
But overall, it was fun. There's a couple of nitpicky things. Like, I didn't like that they had to throw racist in there because that didn't seem to make sense. Xenophobic, I could buy, but I don't understand how are they going to say that in 10 years the Vulcans are a respected part of the Empire.
Right.
There's a couple little things here and there. And why the pointless change to the Constitution class.
Right. Well... Just to finish it up, that guy tries to kill her, and she ends up killing him. And, she feels bad about it for all of 30 seconds, then gets over that. And commands, because she's being, she's being stalked and all that good stuff. Like, I had a stalker today, so me and her have something in common. And then she goes into her room, and Ash is there. And for a moment, I thought maybe it was going to be, and it still may be, the Mirror Universe Ash. I thought maybe she was going to almost give everything away to the Mirror Universe.
Right, I was thinking that for a second, too. That was Mirror Universe Ash. And John Lemon, you must not have watched the episode because they made it pretty clear what happened to Voq in this episode.
Yeah, I still think I wouldn't be surprised if it's a fake out and this isn't Voq. I'm just saying. So, here's the thing I don't like. So, first off, okay, she's being stalked. That I get. It makes sense. It's very Mirror Universe. But now she's in her room. Even though Ash is there, it might be time to try to look up information.
Right, and that's the thing. Even in the original series, they established, like, for example, Spock was, and this was from Mirror Mirror, Spock was in his quarters accessing the library records and trying to plot against Kirk.
Right.
And so it's not like they can't access the computers from their quarters.
Right. And then the other thing that just irritated me. So not only are they not looking it up, but now it's time for sex because this is Discovery and that's what you're going to do. And they're having sex and enjoying themselves. And then it shows a scene of Lorca, the man who just the epitome to Burnham right now, who Ash looks up. The man who has made Ash and Burnham what they are is just in the most enhanced agony booth, right? And so they're jerks. They're horrific people. Michael and Ash they're bad people.
And John, Ash is Vogue.
Is what they have somewhat indicated.
They've made it very... What they've done, they didn't come out and say it because they're being coy about it, but in this episode, it is now confirmed that Ash has been surgically altered. His bones have been crushed and reshaped, and his personality has been
grafted,
has been changed from outside forces. So, yeah, and Ash is probably long dead.
I'm telling you, this is Discovery we're talking about. They may do something stupid. I'm not. Everything points to that, which is why I don't believe it, because they do stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? If I was writing it, he would be Vogue based on what they have now. I'm just saying. Everything is pointing at that. I don't know. Again, we kind of discussed it beforehand. 7 out of 10, in my opinion. Here's what I would say. Based on this episode, based on the last 3 or 4 episodes that I've watched, I think that it is worth to purchase CBS for a month and to watch it all and to catch up. It's like $17 or something like that. And if you haven't, and you have $17 to spare after giving to both mine and Anti-Tracker's Patreon, then I would give the $17 to CBS and I would watch it all the way through. Simply because I think that towards the end, it may be becoming more what you want it to be. There are things I hate about it that, to me, aren't tracked. The gore porn, and like Michael said, some of the inconsistencies are annoying. But that would be my opinion. What do you think, Michael?
I still would hold out and see how the rest of the season pans out. I think it's looking more promising. Do I think it's worth paying for?
$17 to see the 7 episodes, or how many ever? 12 episodes.
Right. See, I don't like the paywall. I think that the paywalls is a bad idea. This should be on the CBS network. I mean, I understand they couldn't say the F word and show Klingon boobs if it was on the CBS network, but you know, I'm sorry, that's where it belongs. This is Star Trek, not frickin' Game of Thrones. And I don't understand why they're trying to make it into some kind of adult type entertainment. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I wouldn't. My daughters are too young to watch this right now, in my opinion. John Lemon says, that's such crap, though I can't remember who it was that said it, but they said they dislike the Klingon scenes the most. I love the Klingon storyline so far.
I think the Klingon storyline with the chick, I can't remember her name, is interesting to a point, but overall, no. I think the Klingons in Discovery are still a big failure. I don't like the way they sound. I don't like the way they look. I mean, her head frickin' looks like a xenomorph from the Alien franchise. I mean, I didn't even realize how ridiculously big her head is until she was trying to kiss Ash, which makes me think, well, how did they crunch his huge head into the shape of Ash? But,
Well, that's a good point, too, right there.
Yeah. Because if Klingons have long, freaky-looking brains, how they just roll it up and shove it into a smaller space? I mean,
so some people are saying he is a decoy for Vogue. I really could see him. I really could see them doing this, using this type, grabbing some random human, causing all kinds of strife to him. Torturing him, adding the Ash persona onto him, in order to throw off the audience and then give some kind of BS argument of how he's like a decoy Voke or he's something different, or maybe not a random human, but a random Klingon, and trying to tie that in. I mean, maybe not. Maybe it'll be. Again, these are the people.
Well, he's got to be a Klingon. I mean, he was speaking Klingonese.
And they crushed his bones to make him.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying he's not Klingon. I'm saying I wouldn't be surprised if that's the writing, right? Have a good night, Eric Colt. Check out the Anti-Tracker for definitively sure.
And you know what they should do is when they reintroduce Giorgio, since we know she's coming back sooner or later, they should first have her sitting at, to show how ruthless she is, sitting at a table eating a Klingon head.
Yeah.
Just
and it's the female Klingon's head.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Yeah, I mean, they're going to be able to bring back characters that they killed, and she is supposed to be in several different episodes, so I wouldn't be surprised. Overall, I think it was better than usual. It was asked if I like Discovery. Discovery is getting better. It
still doesn't feel like... It doesn't feel like Star Trek. To me, it feels like a Star Trek fan fiction. And which is an improvement on how I felt about it, at the beginning, where I felt it was, the result of someone taking a Klingon dildo and ramming it up Star Trek's posterior.
Whoa, sit down.
But now I will take it down to it just feels like well-produced Star Trek fan fiction by people that don't really understand Star Trek.
Lord. All right, so that's going to be about it tonight, guys. Don't forget to rate, comment, and subscribe. Tomorrow we'll be having the Battle of Terok Nor, where the Terran Rebellion finally hits it into big gear and takes on the Klingon Cardassian Alliance. Don't forget that we'll be doing some stuff with Eagle Moss. Looking forward to it. Going to start a Starship series. I think you guys are really going to enjoy. I'll also be doing morning shows, hopefully starting this week. So hopefully that goes well. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Thanks so much for coming. Again, check out the Anti-Tracker. He's becoming like big business. Boofire191, the Boofire191, gave him a shout out. He's going to be bigger than me and not even want to come on my show. He was even giving me some crap about.
I don't want to be on your show.
He was even giving me some crap about. Well, I usually only show my icon. I can't believe you're making me do this. You know who I am. I was on Boofire191. But hopefully he'll be dwarfing us all in the very future. I think he deserves it. Great YouTuber. Check him out. Guys, again, thanks so much for watching, and we will see you on the next Lore Reloaded. And now I'm going to sit here for a second and make it awkward so that it'll get there for the video on demand. And